On this recording, I'll be changing the oil pan gasket on a 1999 Honda Civic DX. If you're working on a 1996 to 2000 Honda Civic, then the procedure should be about the same. This is the Honda Civic I'll be working on. I already drained the oil. Every time you work under a car, you should wear safety glasses. You don't want anything to fall on your eye. When the cars turn on, the exhaust pipe get very hot. This is the exhaust pipe, so you don't want to touch the exhaust pipe. I gotta wait till the car cool down and then I'll work on removing the oil pan. This is the oil pan. Exhaust pipe is here. First I'll remove these two screws. One here and one there. Here's how I'm gonna remove it. I'm gonna just use a ratchet, socket, and extension. I thought these two were screw, but they're not screw. It's actually two nuts threading into a screw. So I took this nuts out already. Here's the nuts. The next step, I'm gonna take out this screw and this screw. I'm gonna use a wrench and a socket. I'm gonna hold one side with a wrench and the other side I'll use a socket. Cause there's the screw it's a screw, and then the other end here is a nut. Looks like there's a spring on the screw, so it's possible once I remove the nuts, the screw might shoot out. So I gotta be careful. Here's how I'm gonna do this. The wrench is on the nuts. The socket and ratchet is holding onto the screw. So I'm gonna hold the wrench and I'm gonna turn the socket. And by doing that, the nut's gonna get released from the screw. If I feel like I'm gonna break something, or if I can't move the anything, if the screw is on it too tight, then I'll use these penetrating oils and I'll spray the nuts and screw. But first I'm gonna try without the penetrating oil. Damn, it's on it too tight. I was gonna try turning the socket, but I'm gonna use a hammer and use the hammer on the wrench. It might be a good idea to spray penetrating oil on it. This is on the other side of the exhaust. The side that's right under the exhaust manifold. There's a nuts here, and a nut right there. I gonna spray lubricating oil to these nuts also. If you don't have these penetrating oil, then WD-40 should work also. I already sprayed the penetrating oil to the nuts. I gotta let it sit for 10-15 minutes and then I'll try again. I gotta just do it this way. Put the wrench on the nuts. I'm gonna try using a pipe. Put one end of the wrench in the pipe. Pipe is for leverage. Damn, that was hard. Okay, I could turn the screw now, so I gotta put the other. The socket is gonna prevent the screw from turning. The nut was on it tight, so I don't know if the penetrating oil has anything to do with helping the nuts get loose. It's not out yet, but I gotta start on the other side. You're facing the nut, so you gotta turn it counterclockwise. These nuts here, whether if they're screw or nuts, if you're gonna put a wrench on it and hit it with a hammer, or if you're gonna be turning it real hard, you gotta be careful and make sure it's fit tightly. Cause I stripped this one. The other one I got that one loose, but this one is kind of I stripped it a little bit, so if I keep doing it harder, the nut's gonna just strip all the way. The nut is stripped, but the wrench could still stay on it. I just can't turn it anymore. Cause if I did try to loosen the nuts with the stripped nuts, it would just get stripped somewhere. But I used the nuts to hold I used the wrench to hold the nuts, and I was able to turn the screw. So it's loosened out, and I'll be able to get it out. But I'm gonna need to go buy a new nut, because this nut is no good anymore. I'm gonna show you how I did the extra leverage. To get leverage, I put the ratchet inside this pipe right here. And earlier I put the wrench inside this bigger rod, pipe, whatever you call it. When I was using the this to turn the wrench on, I put the wrench inside this hole. I got those two screws out. This one's the nuts that got stripped a little bit. This is the other end of the exhaust pipe. I already got the exhaust pipe out. The other end have these three nuts holding it under the exhaust manifold. And to take those three nuts out, I just use this right here. These three nuts and this part right here, it came from right here. These three screw stud right here is where the three nuts came from. And the exhaust pipe goes right here. I didn't get a chance to record it, so I'm explaining. I think these are called screw stud. The next thing I'll do is, there's a bracket here I gotta take out. The bracket is between the engine and the transmission. So it looks like there's a screw here, another screw here, a screw here, one up here. I see 4 screws. Doesn't look like there's any more. I got all the 4 screws loosened from the bracket, and to get those screws loosened, I used the ratchet. I used these 2 sockets because there's 2 different size screw, and for one of the screw that's in tight space, I used the extension here. Here's the bracket. Like I just said, the screw are loose already. This one came out. This one. Okay, I took this one off. The bracket is already falling because it looks like there's only one screw holding it up right now. The second screw came from here. Should be up here though. And this one fell down. This one came from, it fell down because it was already loose. It came from up there. It came from here. That is the bracket. And then the screw goes into the hole there. The hole behind the bracket. The hole is there, and then the bracket is this. The last screw, this one's very loose, so it's about to fall. The last screw is this one. Once I remove this screw, it's already loose. Once I remove it, the bracket is gonna fall. There's another thing I need to remove. Okay, right here is this is the oil pan. There's like a cover right here. I need to take this cover out. The transmission is back here. To take this cover, because this cover is on the way of the oil pan. To take this cover out, I gotta move. There's a screw. There's a screw here. the screw is there. I took the screw out. The screw go in that hole, and the cover came out. The next thing to do is to remove all the screw holding the oil pan. I just finished counting. It looks like there's 18 nuts and screw holding the oil pan to the engine. These oil pan screw and nuts are not on it very tight. It's not very hard to loosen it. Looks like some of it are nuts and some of it are screw or bolts. I'm able to loosen it with just one hand. I'm gonna first loosen all of it, and then I'll take it out after it. All the screws on the oil pan are loose now, and I use this to loosen all the screws on the oil pan. I use this ratchet right here. There's an adapter. The adapter, the ratchet, a long extension, and there's a socket at the end. I took out all the screws except for two. There's a screw right there. And there's another one back here. I left these two screws here, so if the oil pan fall, the screw will hold it up. The other screw is on this side there. The screws are there, but they are very loose. I'm gonna try tapping the oil pan, see if it'll fall. Okay, it doesn't look like it's not moving. I removed the last two screws. I'm gonna try tapping the oil pan with this. See if I could break it from the gasket itself, and then hopefully the oil pan will come loose. Remember, all the screws are removed right now, and you don't want to use a pry bar to pry between the oil pan and the engine. You don't want to use a pry bar or anything to pry it, because you might create a gap, and then when you put the oil pan back on, it might leak. So I'm gonna hit it with a. You don't want to use a hard hammer. Use something soft. Looks like it's coming out. I gotta go put on glove, because when it falls, I don't want to dirty my hand. The engine, the oil pan is loose. But there's a bracket here. This thing is on the way, so I can just bend it. And then later I'll just bend it back when I install everything back. There's a screw up here holding it. I could just remove the screw and take it out. The screw is back here. I mean, it's further up there. The screw is up there. Those two screws. If I take those two screws out, I should be able to remove this. This thing right here. But I'd rather just bend it, because it looks like those two screws are also holding. Those two screws are also holding that thing, metal thing right there. That thing right there. One of the screws is holding this. So if it's holding that, and it's holding onto the part, this part at the end. So if I take out that screw, it might mess up the alignment of the screw hole, so I might have a hard time putting it back. I can just bend it. Probably good idea to wear thick gloves so you don't hurt it. This isn't the right, it's not the proper way to take out the oil pan by bending this, but I'm gonna do it this way. It's bent now, and then I should be able to take down the oil pan. There's the mating surface. Looks like there's a lot of oil on it, but I don't see any gasket stuck on it, except for right here. There's some stuff stuck on it. I think these are some kind of silicone or something. Here's the oil pan. I use this gasket scraper right here. I use it to scrape some of the silicone that was on here. On the mating surface. And I also use a lot of napkins to clean it, because you don't want any oils on the mating surface right there. I tried taking the gasket off, and it is very hard. It's on there real tight, it's hard to take out. Here's a piece of the gasket I was able to take out. So I sprayed this gasket remover on it. I gotta let it sit for a while and try again and see if it'll be easier. Those thing right there, yellow, it looked yellow. The reason it looked yellow is because I sprayed these on it. That nuts that got stripped, I went to AutoZone and got some new one. So I'll be good with the nuts. You don't want to use just any nuts and put on that screw. You want a nut that's gonna be able to handle the heat from the exhaust pipe. So I got this at AutoZone, because these nuts, There's some weak one and some stronger one. The oil pan is there. The gasket is too hard to remove. It's gonna take me a long time to remove it. So I just went ahead and bought a new oil pan. Remember that bracket right there where I push it? This one, I push it this way to get it out of the way so I can remove the oil pan. It would be a lot easier to put the oil pan back if I take this out. There's two screws up here. I think if I take these two screws out, I could remove that. That screw there. And then there's another one to the right of that screw. This is the second one. If I take these two screws out, I might be able to remove that. I'm not going to, because if I take this one out, nothing's gonna happen. But if I take this screw out, this screw is holding onto two brackets. I'm worried if I take this screw out, okay, the bracket, the other bracket that it's also holding on, it might move down, and then it won't align with the thread, and I can have trouble putting the screw back on. I'm talking about, see this? This is the bracket that go all the way down, and it kind of blocked the oil pan. This one, I could take this screw out. I gotta have to take this screw out too, cause this screw is holding on to this bracket and this bracket. And if I take this screw out, this bracket might fall down, and then I might have trouble pushing it back up. So I won't take this out. One more time, if I take this out, these two screws out, I might be able to, if I do that, take those two screws out, I might be able to remove this. Well, to be on the safe side, I just push it back. So, I won't, I mean, to be on the safe side about that other bracket falling down, I'll have trouble pushing it back up. I'm gonna be using these gasket maker along with the gasket itself. I put on the blue gasket. It only fit one way. If you try to have this side over here, the screw hole is not gonna align. For sure you're gonna need to put some kind of silicone on these four corners. If you don't, it might leak. If you don't, it will most likely leak. Cause you know, on the corner, there's a gap. If I put my finger on the other side, you'll see my finger. I gotta put these it doesn't say there's silicone. I don't see anywhere saying silicone, but I think there's silicone. I'm gonna put it all the way around, but on the corner I'm gonna put more than on the side. I'm gonna go around the bolt holes, the screw holes. Now I'm gonna put the gasket on it. I'm gonna put silicone on these four corner two on the top. I got an oil pan back onto the car, the new oil pan, and I use this extension to finger tighten the screw. I only have one screw left to tighten. There's the new oil pan. I thought it was gonna be hard to align all the screw holes, but it was easier than I thought. This is the last screw that I'm gonna finger tighten. According to the instruction here, after you finger tighten, you gotta wait for 1 hour and then torque all the screw to the specified foot-pound. And I have the book, so I know how many foot-pound I'm gonna need to torque the screw to. I remove this. I'm gonna put silicone all the way around to be on the safe side. I should have did this the first time. So I took the oil pan down again. I'm gonna put these silicone all the way around the top also. I'm gonna put it back to the car and then I'll finger tighten it again. I put the oil pan back onto the car. My hand's real dirty from working on the car. Okay, according to this book, the oil pan to engine bolt will be 104 inch-pound. I thought it was gonna be foot-pound, but it'll be 104 inch-pound for each of the bolt. This one's the old oil pan. I'm gonna just use this to explain. Here's how I gonna tighten the bolt. I'm gonna start with the middle bolt, and then I'll work my way out. And then this screw, this screw, this screw, this screw. I'm gonna start from the middle and then work my way out when I tighten the screw. It's been about an hour, so I'm gonna start and tighten up the bolt on the oil pan. I'm in a hurry. Right now it's late at night, so I'm not gonna record. I use this torque wrench to torque all the bolt for the oil pan to the engine. I put everything back on the car. I gotta wait 24 hours before I could put oils into the engine, because according to the instruction for these silicone, I gotta wait 24 hours. I'm gonna explain the step I did to put the parts back onto the car. The cover plate goes behind this bracket. The bracket is covering it, so you can't see the cover plate. First I put the cover plate on it. I think it's like a dust cover, and then I put this bracket on. The bracket has 4 screws. After I put the bracket on, I put the exhaust pipe on it. When I put the exhaust pipe on, the first thing I did was I put these 2 screws here, and then I put the exhaust pipe here, and then I put the 2 nuts on. I put the 2 nuts on loosely, and then I put the other end of the exhaust pipe onto these 3 screw or bolt stud, and I tighten this up. I tighten it up all the way, and then I went back here. I tighten up these 2 nuts. I tighten it all the way, and then I bent this bracket back, and I put these 2 nuts on. And then I tighten up the nuts. The exhaust pipe, I put it back alone, but it would be easier to put the exhaust pipe back on if you have someone helping you. After about 14 hours of putting the oil pan back onto the car, about 14 hours later, I removed the oil cap. I removed the oil cap so air could go into the engine freely, because air is needed for the silicone to dry. So I opened the cap so more air could go in. It's been about 24 hours. So I'm gonna put oils in the engine, start the car, and see if there's any leak. I'm gonna turn on the car, and then I'll check for leaks. Doesn't look like there's any leaks. When you're checking if there's any leaks or not, you don't want to get under the car. You want to check it from being away from the car. The most stressful thing about the work I did with the oil pan on that car is whether there's going to be a leak or not. And there wasn't any leak, so I'm happy with that. There is one more thing I want to go over. If you feel you could do a good job at removing the gasket from the oil pan that came from your car, then you don't need to get a new oil pan. The reason I got a new oil pan is because I didn't want to take the time to remove the gasket from the oil pan that was on my car. My name is Welking, and this is the end of this recording.